Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Alright, so I've been hearing all these words about Melmetal possibly being allowed for the Catch Cup. It either might be in the code and everything, however, Melmetal is a mythical Pokemon. If you saw on the list from the Catch Cup, and we're going to go after it in technical summary, they said mythicals are banned. However, we know our Lord and Savior, Niantic Incorporated, is the most stingent and best augmented reality gaming company in the entire world, so we 100% know that they will not possibly jack up and leave Melmetal out of that ban list. No, seriously, this is assuming. Disclaimer, huge disclaimer, before I say anything more. This video is assuming Melmetal is somehow allowed for the Catch Cup. Because you can get it from the Meltan box, you can use the Pokemon Home or Let's Go Eevee, get your Shiny Meltan, and you could catch it during the period of the Catch Cup eligibility, which is November 9th up until now. So the question is, if it's allowed, keyword is if. I've said it twice, so you can yell at me if you want to, but I've told you already. This is if Melmetal is allowed because Niantic forgets it's a mythical and it can be used for Go Battle League. Melmetal is actually incredibly powerful for the Great League. With the absence of things like, well, you could still get Galar and Stunfisk, however, it's unknown if it will actually work, if hatch Pokemon do work. So you could still hatch G-Fist, however, the odds of you hatching one and investing into one is very low, so if you do happen to get one, or if you're fighting a spoofer with one, then it kind of sucks, but other than that, Melmetal is very powerful. Melmetal sports Thunder Shock, and because it has Thunder Shock, it has a very spammy moveset, and it just absolutely destroys. You can back-to-back, you can, if you have proper edge management, you can do so much damage with a Melmetal. As you see, very balanced stat pool. Somewhat thick, somewhat bulky for a meta. Like, it's not super bulky compared to, like, Ultra or Master League. However, it does pretty well, especially if you do resist. As you see here, pure Steel typing does resist a ton of typings, only being weak to Fighting, Fire, and Ground. So seeing as there's not a lot of little Marowaks, and if you see Machamp, or you see Obstagoon or Scrafty, I'm sorry, run, because it's going to suck. Or if you do see that person with a G-Fisk, one, you're trying way too hard, my friend, and two, if you do have a G-Fisk, you must have worked pretty hard to get one, because it's in 7kx. But like I said, other than that, it sports a ton of resistances, and it also resists those Charmers and Dragon Breath users, so it's really versatile for this meta. Again, because of Thunder Shock, it's very spammy. Sports Rock Slide Superpower as one of its spammiest movesets in the game. It just deals a ton of damage. You will either bait or you will punch your opponent to oblivion with a Melmetal. Is it expensive? Yes, it's expensive. However, the shiny and the potential for the one that you are getting right now to be a Shundo or very good for Great or Ultra League is high because the shiny is out. Because of that, you are likely to build one for Go Battle League. And remember, it's 100k candy and 100k dust. It's also, depending on the level you get it at, it maxes out at around like level 14 or 15. So it's expensive. It's expensive. It's expensive. I'm going to say that for the fourth time. It's expensive as hell. So before you tell me, I did not tell you, it's super expensive. So yes, Melmetal is in fact very expensive for the Catch Cup. If you can use it. Alright, so here I have the custom rankings for the Catch Cup. Custom rankings are different. For example, Open Great League does matter. Like, things do change when you take out Mythicals for Open Great League. Just because Mythicals are really good for Open Great League. And, as you see here, I have the 2 shield already went up. So how does Melmetal do if it's actually allowed in this meta? As you see here, I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to scroll down. I'm scrolling down. I'm still scrolling down. Scrolling down. So before y'all think Melmetal is the greatest thing since Slice Jesus G, guess what? It is not. So Melmetal is very strong against flyers as well as Wigglytuff. However, you lose against Umbreon, you lose against Dragonair, Vileplume. Now, these aren't all. You won't see a lot of these in this meta. You likely will see some Charmers, and you likely will see Altaria. And also Whimsicott and Clefable. So, it might not be a bad idea. This is if Melmetal is allowed. It's very good in the 2-shield. As you see here, with the Thundershock Superpower Rock Slide moveset, you can bait a lot of shields and threaten your opponent very heavily. Especially if you win the lead and lock in Melmetal and you manage energy well, it's a monster. So as you see in the lead, number 71, not too great, but not horrible either. Like I said, if some of those picks, like I said, you're likely to see Charmers running around. You're likely to see Flyers running around. Because of that, guess what? Rock beats Flying, and Superpower doesn't exactly beat Fairy, but Steel type does resist Charm, so technically this isn't really a bad mumble or a bad rant that I'm doing right now, because it's viable. It's viable. That's all I have to say. It's viable. You can use it. You can. However, I don't know if you can use Melmetal, so we're about to find out. So that's a 2-shield scenario. Rank 71. Not too great, and the reason being is because of the presence of things like Scrafty. You can still get Machamps in this meta. There's also, like, other things. Like, Melmetal is incredibly powerful in open Great League meta just because of its resistances. It resists a lot of things. Alright, so the 2-1 shield, it gets a little more forgiving. As you see here, if you scroll down, Melmetal actually takes a better spot in the 1-shield scenario. Now, given it's going to take shields anyways, but Melmetal does really, really well. As you see here, it doesn't generate, but it does, in the 1-shield, 90% is a very good rating. Very good against a lot of top picks. And it's really, yeah, from 75 to 26, it's very good in the 1s, and in the Matrix we'll see even more in just how good Melmetal is. In the 0s, I believe Melmetal this is where Melmetal, I believe, does the least damage. It's difficult to really try Melmetal in the 0s, because in the closer, what makes Melmetal really good is 1, it breaks shields, or 2, it charged up fast with Thundershock. So unless you one-shot whatever you are facing with Superpower or with Rock Slide, it's going to be really hard to use Melmetal in the closer. But at this point, if you are in the closer, 1, you have energy with Melmetal, or 2, you have moves stored so that you can queue up and fire them. So with Melmetal allowed, Melmetal actually ranks at number 20, which isn't bad at all. You take out things like Bastiodon, Altaria, you still beat really relevant meta picks. Now, you do lose against fighters. That's one thing you have to be careful of. So you're going to lose against fighters like Scrafty, but you should be okay otherwise. You beat a living hell out of Bastiodon. You beat Altaria. You also beat Honchkrow and Magnezone. So you beat a lot of good picks with Melmetal in the closers and in the 1s. But like I said, you do kind of want shield or energy advantage. So unless you win hard against what you're facing, it's going to be really difficult for you to come back from that match. Alright, so here's the Matrix, my favorite part of the video. I always say this because you get to see what kills you and what you kill. So, Melmetal, Thundershock, Superpower, Rock Slide. I wouldn't recommend any other moveset. This is what makes Melmetal so good. Both of these moves are very fast, very strong, and you can really use Melmetal's ability to charge energy with Thundershock to deal a ton of damage back-to-back, queue up moves, or just like do a lot. You could do a lot with Melmetal. Well, you probably know that because either 1, you've used it, or you've died to it a bajillion times. Me, it's more like the second one because I don't really use Melmetal at all. Anyways, Melmetal we have here on the left with the standard moveset as well as the Catch Cup meta to the right. So when we run the simulator, this is what you get. In the 2 shields, as you saw, Melmetal isn't the best in the 2 shield. You can break shields, but you're not going to convincingly beat a lot of matchups unless they're dragons, unless they're flying, unless you resist them like flying, Swileless. You want to avoid grass and fighters at all costs. As you see here, you have really bad matchups against Medicham and Machamp. Really bad matchups. I don't foresee a lot of Swamperts with Hydro Cannon, but you want to be careful. You do beat Charmers, though. You beat Dragons. As you see here, you beat Charmers, you beat Dragons, you beat Flyers as well, with pretty convincingly with Melmetal, just because you do resist those. You do have a ton of resistances against its moves. And you absolutely destroy Bastiodon. So that's always a plus. Destroying Bastiodon is always a plus. You beat Tropius, you also beat Snowy Castform, Clefable, Togekiss, like I said, Charmers, some Razor Leafers, Flyers, the whole shebang, you do beat them. And if you can Superpower to death like you do with Obstagoon, it's very good as well. You'll beat Dragonite, you beat Mandibuzz, you also beat Ferrothorn and Shadow Skarmory. Now, what makes Melmetal kind of iffy is because if you do get outpaced or you do get resisted, it kind of sucks. The thing about Rock Slide and Superpower, they don't give you stab. So that's why it's so important to manage energy and shield well. Now, you're going to hate that I say this, but Melmetal does take some skill to play. As much as OP as it is across all 3 leagues. Because even though it's not as thick as it is in the other 2 leagues in Great League, don't get me wrong, it's still really strong. Especially if you win the lead or if it has a convincing matchup. And the one-shield things don't change. As you see, you still beat Flyers, you still beat Snowy, you still beat Flyers, you still beat things that you can punch to death with Superpower. You do very well against Flyers, and as Dragon Breath users, etc., and some Razor Leaf users, you do extremely well. You even beat Obstagoon just because in the 1s, just because, and the 2s, just because Superpower sucks. And Obstagoon pretty much has to shield, because if they eat 1 Superpower, as you see, 139, you will one-shot a Obstagoon. Yeah, it's really dumb. You do one-shot Obstagoon, so they have to shield, because technically they don't, but they have to have some really big coconuts they have to have some really giant coconuts for that bait. And then no shield, Melmetal kind of gets a little bit of forgiveness. Like, the thing about Melmetal, it kind of wins and loses the same matchups. You can flip matchups depending on energy advantage, etc., and shield advantage. Of course, how everything goes, it's really situational. But as you see, you beat a slew of Pokemon in the zeros. You still beat a good number of Pokemon in the Catch Cup meta in the zero shield. Obviously, you still lose hard against Scrafty fighters, mainly. You also lose against Galarian, Stunfisk, any ground types, etc. So make sure you do be careful of that. Fighters will end your soul, and you just have a really bad matchup against Azu. With Thunderbolt, you can flip the Azu matchup. I don't recommend you run Thunderbolt, though, just because of how squishy Melmetal is. And I don't foresee a lot of Azus being played around. So if you either pick one or the other, but I definitely would stick with the standard moveset. Up a shield, things might change. So if we put to the 1 shield, here's what happens. So if we give you shield advantage, the 1 to 0s, you beat a ton of the meta, only losing to fighters. You actually beat Scrafty too, though, because I think with Scrafty, you can superpower it to death. As you see here, superpower, it dies, GG's. No, you double up on superpower, then it dies. So up a shield, it's really strong against a lot of matchups. You only lose against Medicham and Shadow Champ. So if you're in the 1 to 0s, it's really, really good. Up 2 to 0s, you're a monster. Up the 2 to 0s, you only lose to Shadow Champ and Medicham again. So you only lose against 2 matchups out of the entire Catch Cup meta if you're in the 1 to 0s or the 2 to 0s. That's nuts. So Melmetal is really freaking good, especially when you take the 2 to 1s, or if you have shield advantage. Melmetal is a beast. As you see here, you do lose more matchups because you're not in the 0 shield. You still win a decent amount of them. You still take out 1, 2... Wish Dash 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you still beat 30, like 60, 70% of the matchups. So you only lose against Witch Cash, Shadow Victory Belt, etc. But you're, like I said, even with shield advantage, especially in the 0s to 1 scenarios, like 1 0 to 2 0, it's incredibly powerful. But Melmetal is a beast. If this thing was allowed, it would run. It would do a lot of damage. I mean, if this was allowed, you'd see a lot of mirrors, and it would be super annoying because it would be bait central in the mirror, or whoever has shield advantage. That's the worst thing about having the Melmetal mirror. If you get the Melmetal mirror, whoever has energy advantage or whoever falls for the bait first is usually the one that loses, because superpower chunks. Just to give you an example, if you put open Great League, you go Melmetal on Melmetal action. We do this number right here. Watch what happens. If Melmetal eats superpower, 103 points of damage. Now, this is vastly CMP dependent. So, as you see here, in all even shield scenarios, unless you're up shields, you're going to have a really good time in the mirror. And that's, yep, you're going to have a really good time in the mirror. Alright, so Melmetal, I give it an 8 out of 10. As much as I hate to say it. Well, as much, I hate it because I don't play Melmetal. I only played it in, I believe, Voyager for Self Cup. If you know what that is, it's a long time ago and you probably know what it is. If you do know what it is, it's been a long many moons. But for regular Go Battle League, Melmetal is a monster. And the thing about Melmetal is that because it generates energy so quickly, in a skilled player, Melmetal will wreck shop. Especially, as you saw, it's very strong with shield advantage and in the 1 to 0s and the 2 to 0 scenarios. With energy and shield advantage, Melmetal is a beast, and it has so much play against a lot of the meta, even against its weaknesses. As you saw there, you can actually beat Scrafty in the 1 to 0s. So it does have play against its weaknesses. It can drop a bunch of rocks. There's a lot of things you can do with Melmetal. The difficult thing is, the reason why I give it an 8 out of 10 is just because it's fast, it's powerful, and it's somewhat bulky and very strong matchups against its positive matchups. The reason it's con is because, one, it's expensive as hell. It's really expensive. It's super expensive. Super expensive. That's the one. Two, the thing about Melmetal is that, you see this blurb right here? You may not even be able to use it. The disclaimer, and I'm going to say this 100 times. Melmetal is a mythical Pokemon. So, mythical Pokemon such as Mew, it just says such as. So, the reason why people don't think it is because they saw Mew, Celebi, Jirachi, and Victini. Here's the thing. It says such as. If you look at Melmetal's Dex entry, it's a mythical Pokemon. It's a mythical Pokemon from Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu. So, it is mythical. So, because it says such as, that means things like Deoxys defense will also be banned. Because if Deoxys defense, well, you can't catch Deoxys defense, but whoever has, if they do allow it, it'd be incredibly unfair. Because, well, this is technically disproof stuff anyway, so it's not like it's fair anyways. But for the typical player, the legit player, it's going to be very difficult to contend against the Melmetal. But it is also, the con is it's also very expensive, so you may not be thinking about trying up a Melmetal right now just for the catch cup. You might not be thinking about that. If it's allowed, the keyword is if, and it does not belong in this here wording right here, and because it's not on this wording list and somehow Niantic screws up, it's going to be very good for the catch cup. 8 out of 10 because of speed. It's very strong against its matchup, and with shield advantage, this thing is a beast. And you, in the hands of a skilled player, Melmetal can defeat a ton of the meta, and it gives you so much play. It's so good. But it does have cons, like I said, and you have to avoid fighters. You must avoid fighters. You still have a chance against Scrafty, but the third con is you have to avoid fighters at all costs. Because you lose so hard against fighters, and they do outpace you, I can't give it a perfect score, but I won't even give it a 9 either, because it's so expensive. I think an 8 out of 10 is where Melmetal rightfully belongs. Now, if this thing is allowed, get it now, because in the future, Melmetal is a monster for all leagues. However, I build a Melmetal for all leagues, and if it's allowed, this thing will run rampant in the Catch Cup. If you guys like this video, please like and subscribe. Again, I'm going to say for the 100th time, if Melmetal is allowed, whether or not it's allowed or not, you should build one for the future. And I hope you guys have fun during the catch-up. I hope you have things that you built, have great ideas. Hopefully my videos help you have some ideas. And you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next video.